Well, guys, 2016's been real good so far. I went to Amoeba, saw at midnight, been really productive with the videos.
I'm leaving the show.
He's leaving the show. Wait, what?
Yeah.
John?
Yeah.
John?
It's come to it's come to my attention that I have little to no free time as of late, and I've been neglecting my own videos, not by choice, but just by the fact that time with my other work and getting out my actual videos on my channel has pretty much sucked up all of my time, and trying to maintain, a somewhat small social life, just so I'm not living in a rock somewhere by myself, all alone, crying in a corner.
Okay, fair enough, but you did make the time to do a full review of that Rachel Platten album.
Yeah, a lot of people have been saying that, and I was actually paid by the label. No, I'm just kidding. That'd be great.
John, we can't be the Johnny Bunch anymore.
I know. Johnny's been taking this harder than anyone else. And
You can't cry in the corner.
we'll still see each other on weekends.
I don't like weekends.
That's what my dad said.
Well, Mark, I'm not your dad. I am a man. I'm a man of my podcast word, and my podcast word is that the bird is the word, and also that I will come back on the show at least 2 more times this year. That's my promise right now.
Okay.
Boom.
You are dismissed.
Off the hook. I knew it. But for real, podcasting, it's something that it doesn't take up a ton. I'm not going to lie and say it takes up a ton of my time or anything like that, but it's also not something that I feel that I am extremely passionate about. And like I was telling Mark and Johnny, I don't doubt that, if I'm given the opportunity again in the future to appear on a podcast or to be a co-host on something else maybe years down the road, I'm not saying that I'll deny that, but as of right now, the cards are stacked against me.
He's just saying this because if Anthony Fantan decides to ask him to come on the Needle Drop podcast, he's not going to turn him down.
Guys, I'm going on that shit. Come on, son.
But if you stay on, you'll have something else to promote, and then you'll make me the money. Okay, you got that?
Gotta make money for everybody. Can't be jealous, Jonathan. Can't be jealous at all.
Today is the end of an era when we must retire the greedy record exec Mark Wahlberg joke.
We ain't gotta retire him. He's just gotta go in a coma for a little bit.
He'll be back. He'll be back someday, guys. Maybe he'll be better than ever. Who knows?
It's like Steve leaving Blue's Clues, man.
Yeah, soon he's gonna be back like Ted.
He's just gotta go take a little tit nap for a while. That's all I'm saying, you guys. Okay?
This is like Steve leaving Blue's Clues in my heart.
Nobody likes you, Joe.
Yeah.
Yeah, no. Fuck Joe.
Fucking Joe thinks he can come in here and just act like nothing happened, and the mailbox still pretends it's the same guy. We know.
Yeah.
We know.
We are aware, Joe. All right? Just because Steve went to go work with the Flaming Lips guy doesn't make you any better.
Yeah. We all know what happened to the Flaming Lips after that. Working with Miley Cyrus.
Yeah. Huh.
Joe, what do you think you're gonna do? Just start producing for Iggy Azalea or something?
Now, that could be interesting. If they took Blue's Clues theme songs and gave them as beats mashed up for her to rap over.
Well, the production quality is the same.
Did you guys hear her new song, by the way, that dropped?
Why would I?
It's called A Zillion, and I cringed. Not only when I heard the title, but when I heard the song, because she tries to make billion, a zillion, and building rhyme together in the chorus of the song.
Ugh.
I filmed a track review for it, and it was just so pissed and ranty and incoherent that I just deleted it.
Yeah, good. That's probably a good idea.
Yeah.
What do you think you're going to do, Joe? Just replace Steve like Chester and Stone Temple Pilots or something?
That's almost a little too
It's too soon. It's too soon, Mark.
No, but it's called a segue.
I mean, there's a lot of things that you try to segue, and I'm never on the same segue as you. It's like our segues are crashing into each other and burning in a corner. We keep saying we're doing things in a corner, and everyone's still on screen. We can all see each other. You guys can't, but
Yes. So that brings us to our next point of discussion, and we don't normally get super serious and somber, but I think this is going to be an exception. The last couple months have sucked for music fans, honestly, in terms of like deaths of really renowned, like respected rock frontmen.
yeah.
Like first there was Scott Weiland, I believe, in late November, I think.
Yeah, I think it was like maybe the 1st of December, actually.
Yeah,
I think
around there.
it was right around the beginning of December.
Yeah, I mean, then Lemmy in December, which was pretty major, even if it was something that maybe you saw coming.
Well, from what I understand, he didn't even know, and his family didn't even know until like 2 or 3 days before he passed away how aggressive the cancer that he had was. So, I mean, I'm sure they saw his declining health, but I don't think a lot of people were expecting him to just go just like that. And that's the same thing with David Bowie. He kept it out of the spotlight. He's obviously the most recent one on the unfortunate list that's stacking up of musicians that have passed, but he kind of kept that out of the spotlight. Did most people, or really anyone in the media, know that David Bowie had cancer? Because I feel like that would have been talked a lot more in this album cycle, for Blackstar.
Oh, definitely.
Well, the thing is that I think that it was It wasn't ever, I don't think it was ever a private thing. I think I heard a couple things about it, but what I really admire is that they never made it a publicity point,
Right. I feel like the general consensus has been like, oh my God, I had no idea that he had cancer,
Which leads to this latest news story. So last Friday, David Bowie released his new and what would be his last album, Blackstar, and then died at the age of 69 after releasing that album on his birthday. And I can't remember the last time that like a musician or celebrity or whatever death has like hit me that much.
I feel a similar way, if for a different reason, maybe Mark. Over the last couple years or so, I've been really digging deep into Bowie's catalog more than I had before. Because like before, I would say I was a casual Bowie fan. Like when The Next Day came out, I liked it. I listened to it. I had heard Ziggy Stardust and other songs, like other than that album, but I wouldn't say I was a. For the last couple of years, I've become a really heavy Bowie fan. And so I was really excited for this new record because I was like, it's the first record since I really got into him that I would, be a diehard Bowie fan now. I've listened to a lot of his catalog. I can see how he's influenced artists, and in a way he's become a weird quasi-modern inspiration for me. So when I woke up and saw that he had passed, I was like, "Oh shit, really? Fucking seriously?" So, yeah, it hit me pretty hard.
Yeah, and I think I think I would consider myself a casual fan technically, but only in that like. But the thing is with David Bowie is that he has such a staggering discography. Like Blackstar was his 27th album, I think.
Yep.
Including just studio albums. And even then, I had like about 3 hours of his music in my iTunes just from the iconic singles from all throughout the decades.
But
so leading
a bit of the longevity of his career and just like how influential he was over not only like a certain period of time, but like over continued decades.
Yeah. So leading up to Blackstar, I was listening through all of that and just being like falling in love with his catalog all over again because I mean, getting into full albums of his is like a staggering thing. Like I'm sure like Johnny was kind of getting at. So after listening to all this stuff, and then Blackstar, which as we're going to get into, was like kind of haunting as his final album. Like it really like again kind of hit hard when the news came, and it kind of makes you look at the album in a whole different way. And actually to the point where as soon as he died, so I was originally going to do a collab review of Blackstar with Sean from Rewind Reviews, who, as you guys might know, fellow reviewer. He was the original co-host of this show. We might have him on again sometime. And we were going to do a review of that album, and then I just messaged him saying, look, man, we got to call this off. I'll just do it myself. He was like, yeah, no problem. But then I decided, we're going to talk about it here because I would repeat a lot of the same stuff anyway.
Where I guess, because we know where Mark sits, we know where I sit now as a Bowie fan. Where do you sit?
Never really got into Bowie. Now, I can't say that I've dug through a ton of his material, but I just, something about the style and the presence, just, it never really clicked with me to like, that I wanted to dive into more of his discography. And it was like I was saying earlier on my Twitter today, it's something that I think you can still respect the hell out of somebody, and you can see like artists whenever you hear an artist like Dave Grohl or other big musicians into the world of music today talk so highly of someone, and you see how influential they may have been to someone. I think that you can still respect that person without maybe being in love with their music. I mean, there's songs, obviously Ziggy Stardust is one that probably everyone has heard, even if they don't know they've heard it, and Space Oddity and other hits like that. And yes, there's a handful of songs that I dig and think are pretty cool, but I mean, like, will this prompt me to check out more of his albums? Definitely. I mean, I had already listened to Blackstar before I had even learned that he had passed, since that came out last Friday. And I mean, a few tracks on there that I clicked with, but I'm definitely going to have to do some more digging to see what else is there and maybe what else I can connect with.
Okay.
Yeah, and the thing about this I've noticed in particular, even compared to other major musician deaths over the last few months, is that there are people in certain circles talking about their major ones, but this is the one where everyone had a eulogy to give. Everyone was majorly impacted by what this guy's done. I think that's mostly because the guy is, like, frankly, one of the most eclectic and, like, varied musicians, not only in rock music, but probably in just music of the last 50 years in general. And it's funny, I've talked about how one of my most respected musicians out there is Beck, but re-listening through Bowie's discography, especially on shuffle, going from something to Suffragette City to something like I'm Afraid of Americans, is that he was basically kind of he was like Beck before Beck, and in a way I just have this tremendous admiration for him in a way that, like, I feel like I do need to, like you guys said, dive more into his full albums to really grasp what he was all about. Because, I mean, with every era of his music, from what I'm gathering, like, whether it be the more, like, psych rock inspired stuff like Space Oddity, or being one of the faces of, like, glam rock and classic rock throughout the 70s, basically making pop music his own in the 80s, or even when he was kind of hopping on the industrial thing and, like, collaborating with Trent Reznor in the 90s, but still totally making it his own in the process. And even right over to this new album, Blackstar, which goes in a ton of experimental directions. Like, I think it's hard to find someone in the world of popular music that was as daring and uncompromising and creative as this guy.
Well, it's not just that. It's like John said, and I saw a post Mike Seatown from Dead End Hip Hop posted. He said, if your favorite band wasn't in some way influenced by David Bowie, your favorite band probably fucking sucks.
Yeah.
I mean, like, Nine Inch Nails is my favorite band, and one of the reasons why I wanted to get more into David Bowie, like 3 years ago, was I was talking to a friend, and he said, like, Trent Reznor worships David Bowie, right? And it's specifically this era. And so he gave me a handful of records to check out, and I absorbed, like, Low is my favorite David Bowie record, and it's like it quickly became one of my favorites ever because it's such a well-crafted piece. And to have something like that be such an influential piece of music, and then have him influence other people like everyone from Lady Gaga to someone like Beck. I mean, Beck, like you said, it's like a more condensed style change of Bowie, because Bowie just kind of spread his story and changing up throughout decades, you know? It's more than just a great artist. It's a great artist who helped form a lot of popular music to a degree that people really don't realize. And I think that's why, and I'm hoping that his passing causes more people to really invest in a good chunk of his discography, because there's a lot of solid stuff in there. Like, good Lord, it's so great. And if you're someone who truly enjoys a variety of music, David Bowie is the type of artist that you can get into.
And let's just hope that Blackstar is finally his first album to hit #1 in the U.S.
Yeah, that would be great.
Yeah, because, I mean, I think the next day it hit #2. It was a new peak for him, and it was #1 behind, like, the Bon Jovi album that no one remembers. That kind of leads to another point that I thought of, like, just a couple hours ago as I was thinking about this, was that what really separated him from other people in his vein, like in his generation stuff, even after making stuff fairly consistently throughout, over 30 years, he knew when to stop. And like, not just stop making new material and go on the nostalgia circuit, but, like, just stop altogether to keep his integrity and not just become a parody of himself. And then when he came back with the next day, you knew that he had a reason to. And especially with Blackstar as this last statement.
It's an interesting record, both in Bowie's collective discography and just as an artistic piece, as an album with something to say. My mom had a brain tumor when I was like 10, and she was given a timestamp. She was going to die. And then, like, near the end of her life, they realized they could take it out. So the rest of my upbringing, she had the same mindset that she still had when she thought she was going to die. And while this album has a lot of bleakness to it, there are hints of some optimism there that I hear my mom had and still has to this day. And this album really gravitated to me more in that aspect. Listening to this album, you could, especially given what happened, you could tell he knew he was going to die. This was going to be his last record, and he wanted to make a statement about it.
Yeah, and I remember that Tony, his longtime producer and co-writer, his post about this was talking about how he knew that this was going to be this last defining statement, but he was still kind of in denial when it finally, came to fruition in the way that it did. So are there, like, any songs in particular where you really caught that attitude that you're referring to?
I'm looking at the track listing real quick because I've literally only listened to the album once, but I gave it a really intent listen. Girl Loves Me kind of got that way, and Sue kind of got that way, or In the Season of Crime. Both in the soundscape, how they're presented, and how Bowie sounds vocally. The lyrics kind of, but more in those aspects, I got that kind of vibe. They are bleak songs, but, like, in the way that the music progresses, and how his voice doesn't sound pleading, but sounds like it's still hopeful. It rings there.
Yeah, and he really just... I feel like this is one of those times where he does where he's not trying to sound like he did 40 years ago, and it works completely in his favor.
I mean, the soundscape of this record kind of sounds like an amalgamation of bits of what he was trying to do on like Earthling and a lot of what he was doing in Berlin Arrow, like Low and Heroes, like a lot of that stuff shown through on this.
Right. I was kind of referring to more just like on a strictly vocal level.
Oh yeah, no. He sounds. I mean, I'm gonna be honest. He kind of sounds like he's dying on this album vocally. His voice is crackling hard.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not gonna go like in depth on every single song, but there's like a certain like matter of fact attitude. It's like it's very bittersweet, especially on the last couple songs where I think it's like two of the more reflective songs on it, Dollar Days and I Can't Give Everything Away. I Can't Give Everything Away. It doesn't have that many lyrics, so I think I'm looking at the line rounds and it's just like 8 or 10 lines or so. But to me, there is definitely a lot more to dig into since there are some pretty cryptic lyrics on here, especially on the title track. But to me, the song is basically talking about the idea that as an artist, he wanted to try to impact how people think about things, and while he didn't completely change the world or anything, he still is kind of accepting of the whatever impact he did have. At least that's what I'm getting from that last song, which I think is a really poignant note to end a career like he's had on.
I can definitely see that, and I can agree with that sentiment. Yeah. So John, you said I'm really interested to hear what you thought about it because again, I don't know. I like hearing. Mark has said a lot, and I've said a shit ton. So I'm curious as to what you kind of thought about the record.
There's a reason I've kept my mouth shut is because I really didn't give it that intent of a listen. Because, like I said, I haven't heard it since his passing, and I hadn't had a chance to listen to it with lyrics along with it or anything like that. I just listened to it in the car a couple of times. Gotcha. But I'm looking at the track listing on it here right now, and I of course remember the title track. Saw the music video for that before the album even came out, and kind of like you were talking about, his voice does sound like very kind of raspy and like it's not that he's on his last legs. Of course, it did end up being that way, but it sounded like he was on the verge of something. And the tracks that really jumped out to me, Lazarus was one that I actually thought was really, really good. That was one of my favorites. Girl Loves Me, and I believe you mentioned Sue a minute ago, and A Season of Crime. I think those were probably my 3 standout tracks from my first 2 listens to it. Like I said, I'm gonna have to sit down and listen to it with lyrics, because I don't want to. I'm not gonna try to dive into any of the song's meanings just because I don't remember that much of what was there.
Right. It's perfectly understandable. And by the way, we're not trying to shame you for not immediately getting into this. By the way,
no. Like I said, I listened to this once when I got home from work because I was like, okay, I need to listen to this. I've been slightly putting it off, and I need to do it. So,
yeah, and I think, and John, you were kind of talking about how like some of the rhythms on this are kind of reminiscent of the stuff off Earthling. And this isn't technically this isn't what Bowie himself was doing, but I think this has some of the best drumming I've heard on an album like in at least a year.
Hell yeah! I was loving the drums on this thing, man. Like, that's partially because, for those who don't know, I play the drums. So when like an album has some really great percussion in it, it hooks me in a little bit more. It helps that I love the general soundscape of this thing, but the drums, like I was padding along to the rhythms of this thing as I was listening to it, because like these are really fantastic drum lines. Like it was good. I loved it.
And I do love that he kind of kept an energy to this album, because even with the really awesome concept, quote-unquote concept of this being what he knows is his last album and making this final note, he could have definitely ended on a very weary, ballady, like trying to tug at the heartstrings in every moment thing, but instead he kept the momentum going. He kept like a really like invigorating sound throughout this whole record with like instrumentation swelling at just the right moments, and I it just feels like a very adventurous album, at least, and especially by the standards of someone that's been doing it as long as he has.
Right.
See, well, that more suits his character though. Like Bowie isn't like he's a somber dude, but he's not like a guy who wants pity. He wants people to kind of revel in his life. You know, they don't want him to kind of
Remember him as he doesn't want to be remembered, I don't think, as just like someone who went out on like a weak note or anything like that, or for that to be at least the main focus whenever people are thinking about his music or something like that.
Exactly.
You know?
Exactly.
I mean, there could have been some foreshadowing here, definitely, and something I was just thinking about is, you know, if he did know, he probably knew that this was going to be his last album. Is it possible that he held out long enough for his album to come out? He wanted to hand one more thing off to the world, and he knew that was going to be the final thing, see a little bit of the reception from it, and he knew his time was pretty much up. So, I don't know. That's just something that crossed my mind whenever.
No, I could see that. I could definitely see that from someone like Bowie.
Oh yeah, and like we were saying, this was definitely premeditated to some extent, but it's weird when I got that text from a friend that holy crap, David Bowie just died. At first I was completely shocked and like, you know, stage 1 denial, maybe it's a hoax, but then I was like, this doesn't make any sense. He just put out an album, but then I thought this makes way too much sense.
Yeah.
You know, because I feel like he knew that because he's had cancer for what 18 months now.
Yeah, 18 months.
So he probably knew that he was going to go at some point this year, maybe.
Right.
But just the fact that it was within the same weekend, that makes it even more kind of haunting. I don't know.
But it's insane, man. It's insane. Like, I don't know. I'm probably going to be binging on Bowie for the rest of the week. So, I mean, while there's other new releases that are coming out that I'm excited for, I've been slowly engulfing myself in his music, but I feel like it's time I just kind of swim in it for a little while.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, good idea. And like next time I'm at a record store, I just see, and I'm in the vinyl section, I'm just gonna see if I can pick up as many old records of his as I can, because recently I picked up a 12-inch single of Let's Dance, but you know, that's just a single. I really want to sink my teeth into whatever I can.
Right. Honestly, I think those record stores are going to be sold out for
for a little while.
Oh yeah, for
a
sure.
while, yeah.
Yeah, so I'll stream it. I don't know, but
They're on Spotify. So I mean, that's
Yep, his whole discography is on there.
true. But you know, older music, that's kind of that's a whole new discussion. But yeah, I think we've talked about this for quite a while. So